here we go.
Greetings. I would like to extend my appreciation to the Moya University for this continued opportunity to share insights around the ageless wisdom teachings academically with the idea of moving into the abstract mind and the intuition. I want to give special recognition to Mike, BL, and Rose, and others whose technical skills and assistance is making these presentations possible. And of course, all of you who have taken your valuable time to participate. So many things to do over the weekend. So again, thank you. Now, as we begin, we're going to have a short recapitulation of where we sort of left off in our previous meeting. There was one special animation that I wanted the group to see around the idea of triangles as living forces rather than static. So I am going to move into slide 1. Now, everyone here has seen this chart many times, but it is really, in a simplified form, a prototype of all the 5 initiations that DK has outlined in A Treatise in Cosmic Fire and in many other of his wonderful books. And it's sort of laid out visually in a way that you can grasp. On the right side of the chart, the feminine rays, and on the left, the masculine rays. If we needed 1 or 2 or 3 generic maps that show us the way home or the process of moving towards perfection, this chart would be one of them. And again, it's just a general representation. Now, in our presentation, last Zoom meeting, we got extensively into the Shri mantra, and I shared an animation during that Zoom meeting. But the one that I wanted the group to see, to me, which is most powerful, is the next one. And you can see it here as a still life, the Shri Yantra. And you will recall that we had explored the ideas that triangles are not separated from other triangles, but they interrelate and must be viewed or experienced as a composite with multiple or many levels being activated simultaneously. Understanding that in the science of triangles, you're starting at one point, but as you build your bridge and you complete the triangle between these 3 points, you've actually penetrated into new and creative energies. And then, as we have discussed very extensively, the triangles, when created and the energy flowing around the triangles at high speed, it becomes the vortex. So triangles and vortexes are almost synonymous terms on a more esoteric level. So in the first chart that I just showed, it's more fifth ray, sequential, independent triangles and forces. Yes, they're linked, but they're separated. And now we're coming to really the same chart, devoid of all the technical information, devoid of numbers, text, and we're going to see the same triangles in motion. So use this as a little mini meditation and sort of try to ease into it intuitively. And with your abstract mind being open, receive any impressions that would be useful for you at this time. So taking a deep breath. Excellent. That visual of moving triangles, which is very organic, clearly demonstrates not just triangles, but waves, levels of vibration, and of course, sound, color, and light emerging. And it's images like that that can give us a better understanding of this quote you're now looking at from DK. Would anyone in the group like to read that for us?
Okay, Asha's got her hand up.
Thank you.
Asha, oh, sorry, we have to. There you go. Can you unmute now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Moving triangles. I wonder if you can grasp at least partially and symbolically the fact that these triangles must not be thought of as placed, static, and eternally the same, or even as three-dimensional. They must be regarded as in rapid movement, revolving eternally in space and ceaselessly moving onward, and as of fourth and fifth dimensional extension. There is no way of depicting them or of bringing them visually to your attention, for only the inner eye of vision can imagine their progression, position, or appearance. Therefore, the entire cosmic web and solar system is an intricate, constantly moving, interwoven series of triangles, wherein each point of a triangle emanates 3 lines or streams of energy, 9 in all. It is likewise a responsive to and responsive of the energies, likewise triple in nature, which lie within its periphery or sphere of influence and vibratory activity.
I think it's clear that with the advent of modern audio video techniques, which we've just seen in the animation, this quote is so powerful. And yes, you have to have the intuition abstract or mental clairaudience and clairvoyance to truly understand that. But I think from the level of sensitivity in this group, that this has already commenced, that you're already doing it. And for a large part, what you're experiencing here is confirmation of either A, what you already know, or B, what you're moving into. So the quotes, although not containing, as DK says, the full experience, with your level of imagination and a few animations I throw in, I think we're really achieving something very important. Something that DK talks about in Cosmic Fire when he says that one of the most important things that he's attempting to communicate to the spiritual student of the Aquarian age is the power of the imagination. And if used in new and creative ways, will reveal much. Okay, excellent. And I apologize for not being able to include that in my last presentation, but we were having so much fun, it got eased out. Okay, so now we're going to get into the main part of this presentation for today. And we're going to share some recent scientific revelations around the nature of light and sound, as well as how atomic and subatomic particles conform to the vortical rings and counter-rotating electrical forces we have consistently showcased in these series of presentations. And I might also add the triangles idea that we've ended with last time and started again this time. They all relate. They all have this interface. So we're going to watch this short video, and then we're going to have an open for question and comments.
Quote, "I consider this extremely important," said Mr. Tesla. "Light cannot be anything else but a longitudinal disturbance in the ether, involving alternate compressions and rarefactions. In other words, light can be nothing else than a sound wave in the ether." End quote. Light makes different sounds. In fact, the sounds that light makes are incredibly gorgeous, and they seem to mimic living creatures and other natural sounds here on Earth. When I first heard about this, I was completely mind blown and wondered why I had never heard of this up until then. This journey we are about to take goes into the beautiful geometries of light and how it seems that sunlight fragments or filaments into individual sounds that make up some sort of protective layer around the globe that flows in plasma tubes around the Earth from the North to the South Poles. When we talk about light, we think of light as just visible light, which is only one tiny little sliver of the full spectrum of light. Light is actually, indeed, the full electromagnetic spectrum. In science, the entire electromagnetic spectrum is called light. And since light is just varying frequencies, it makes sense ultimately to call sound a form of light. You have the frequencies we can hear and the frequencies we cannot hear. Likewise, we have the frequencies we can see and the frequencies we cannot see. According to Hindu mysticism, light and sound is what composes the entire universe, and they have a name for it. the soniferous ether. Soniferous meaning producing or conducting sound. To begin, we start with a simple sentence. The sounds of the auroras. Yes, the northern lights that we are all so familiar with, known as aurora borealis, and the southern lights, the aurora australis, actually make noises, as well as beautiful colors that we have all come to know and love. The Earth is continuously being bombarded by solar particles. When sunspot activity acts up and emits solar flares towards Earth's magnetosphere, the skies on the north and south poles illuminate with vibrant dancing colors. These particles also create very low frequency electromagnetic waves. This creates a natural type of radio which can be picked up by receivers. It's incredible to know that the Earth makes its own radio waves. The first known and documented description of the sounds of the auroras was in 1882 by British telephone operators, described as whistling and crackling sounds. These remained perplexing sounds until the early 1930s, when some people started to associate these sounds with the Northern Lights. Even then, it wasn't until 2012 when Tulane of Aalto University released the first recordings of auroral sounds. So this phenomenon is an extremely new discovery. Even then, I'm sure that these weren't the first people to actually hear the sounds of the auroras, as there are ancient myths and legends surrounding the sounds themselves. For example, the Sami people, indigenous to the Nordic countries, believed that the aurora carried the sounds of their dead ancestors and must be treated with respect. It's considered wrong or taboo to whistle or sing in their presence. Otherwise, you might risk being whisked away by the lights, never to be seen again. The Guardian writes, and I quote, "Rare reports of crackling and whooshing noises accompanying auroras have traditionally been dismissed by scientists as folklore. But data gathered in Finland has shown that under the right weather conditions, auroras can be accompanied by noises." So without further ado, let's hear some of the sounds of the auroras. There are all sorts of different sounds to listen to that the auroras are emitting. Lots of them have different names as well. We will go through and categorize some of these sounds and compare them to some of the natural sounds occurring here on Earth. To begin with, we have the auroral chorus. Now, let's listen to frogs, more specifically, a type of frog called spring peepers. The sounds of the auroral chorus and the sounds of the spring peepers sound incredibly similar, almost like there is a mimicking or a mimicry that happens. As above, so below. Now, let's take a listen to this crackling static produced by the auroras. I will now compare this to the sound of crackling ice that is produced by an ice skater skating on thin ice. They are similar sounds, but correlation doesn't mean causation. That being said, I will describe some of these naturally occurring sounds. First, we have biophony. Biophony is a term introduced by Krauss, who in 1998 first began to express the soundscape in terms of its acoustic sources. The biophony refers to the collective acoustic signatures generated by all sound-producing organisms in a given habitat at a given moment. So the frogs chirping would be considered a biophony. Then we have geophony. Geophony means non-biological ambient sounds generated by the natural world. For example, the sounds of wind, sounds of rain, thunder, and waves. This term was also originated by musician and soundscape ecologist Bernie Krause, and was constructed from the Greek geo, related to earth, and phone, meaning sound. So the sounds of the auroras would be considered a geophony. Light in the form of lightning obviously makes a sound that we are all familiar with called thunder. But did you know that this sound is also heard in the auroras? When listening to the auroras with specially designed receivers, every once in a while you'll hear a crackling sound, which is a lightning strike somewhere on Earth. And then shortly after this electromagnetic pulse, you can hear an ascending and descending whoosh, which is called a hissy whistler. The geometry of this sound is incredible, as it wraps way out into the Van Allen belts in the shape of a torus and descends from one pole and then bounces back and ascends to the other pole. The name for those who are lovers of thunderstorms is brontophile. Bronto is Greek for thunder, and phile comes from the ancient Greek word meaning to love. And likewise, the condition of being afraid of thunderstorms is called brontophobia. Back to the sound of lightning. According to The Guardian, there are more subtle and less understood noises associated with lightning, known as brontophonic sounds, which are heard far less frequently. Brontophonic sounds sound like hissing of a red-hot iron in water or the tearing of fabric. Thunder travels at the speed of sound and is usually heard several seconds after a lightning flash, but brontophonic sounds are perceived at the same time as the flash. One theory is that brontophonic sounds come from induced charge. The same potential difference that generates a lightning stroke may create smaller pockets of electrical charge in the surrounding areas. These may be strong enough at the instant of lightning to make crackling electrical sounds similar to static electric discharge. Brontophonic sounds are part of a larger category of electrophonic sounds. Anomalous rustles and pops, also associated with meteors and the aurora borealis, all of which remain essentially mysterious. So let's go back to the initial question. Does light produce sound? It is said that light does not produce sound on its own because it does not have a physical medium that it can create vibrations in. When certain types of light hit a surface, some of the photons are absorbed and their energy is transformed into mechanical waves that generate sound. Okay, so I've also heard that sound cannot be heard in a vacuum. So if you were in outer space and somehow you were able to scream, no audible sound would come out. According to mainstream physicists, space is a vacuum. Sound is carried by atoms and molecules. In space, with no atoms or molecules to carry a sound wave, there is no sound. There's nothing to get in sound's way out in space, but there is nothing to carry it, so it doesn't travel at all. No sound also means no echo. But then I found out about something called Alfvén waves. In 1942, Swedish physicist Hannes Alfvén combined the mathematics of fluid mechanics and electromagnetism to predict that plasmas could support wave-like variations in the magnetic field, a wave phenomena that now bears his name, Alfvén waves. Northumbria University's Dr. Richard Morton and colleagues found evidence that the magnetic waves also react or are excited higher in the atmosphere by sound waves leaking out from the inside of the sun. The researchers discovered that the sound waves leave a distinct marker on the magnetic waves. The presence of this marker means that the sun's entire corona is shaking in a collective manner in response to the sound waves. This is causing it to vibrate over a very clear range of frequencies. This newly discovered marker is found throughout the corona and was consistently present over the 10-year time span examined. This suggests that it is a fundamental constant of the sun and could potentially be a fundamental constant of other stars as well. So what this article is saying is that not only does light produce sound, but that our very own life-sustaining light source itself, the sun, is producing sound. What's more is that Alfvén waves play a critical role in organizing individual elements into Birkeland currents through a process called Markland convection. So the sound of light literally self-organizes matter into filaments of tubes within tubes, like 3D cymatics. So what is it called when someone can actually hear light? Once thought to be a rare condition, some forms of synesthesia actually allow people to hear light and light flashes. According to Smithsonian Magazine, 1 in 5 people may be able to hear a flash of light. So I want to leave us with these last important thoughts pertaining to the importance of sound and the role of light in the universe, as well as creation myths around the world that believe that the creation of everything in the beginning was sound. According to JPL, NASA, aka mainstream cosmology or scientism, the question is asked, was the world created by sound? And their answer is, before there were any stars or galaxies, 13.8 billion years ago, our universe was just a ball of hot plasma, a mixture of electrons, protons, and light. Sound waves shook this infant universe, triggered by minute or quantum fluctuations happening just moments after the Big Bang that created our universe. And lastly, what role does sound play in some creation myths? The myths from many different cultures have always told us God created the world from sound, from music. Across the globe, there are creation myths which include music as one of the factors playing a major role in the creation of the world. In the beginning was the Word, according to the Gospel of John. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. Genesis 1:3. Thus, speaking the universe into existence, implying that sound comes before light, or sound begets light. From the Vedas of the Hindu tradition comes the writings that in the beginning was Brahman, with whom was the Word, and the Word is Brahman. They state that creation arises from the first sound of the universe, the primordial sound Om. The ancient Egyptians believed that the god Thoth created the world by voice alone. And the Popol Vuh, from the Mayan tradition, the first real humans are given life by the sole power of the word. And there you have it. Sound produces light, produces life.
Excellent. We're going to open up for any comments on the video. And I would simply point out that the age of Aquarius that we're moving into has a scientific counterpart, spiritually speaking, that science is making inroads into. And this presentation by Buddy James is a good example of that. For many, many years, science and religion, or science and spirituality, have been seen as two opposing philosophies, and they're incompatible. But the new Aquarian disciple sees that science, conventional science, is in its infancy. And as it evolves, it's going to interface with the idea that man is a composite of energy relationships, and that they can be contacted under the right techniques and discipline. Okay, we're open for any questions or comments.
Okay, I'll get to you in a minute, Asha. She's got her hand up. Lenny says, sound is the igneous impulse of life. 1/3 rays, and light is the rhythmic movement of fire. 3/3 of the rays. I'm sorry
Excellent.
if I've butchered that. Okay, Asha's got her hand up, so
Thank you, Lenny.
let me ask her to unmute. Please go ahead.
I'm not going to talk coherently, but I just want to ramble a little bit in the hopes that Duane can string it together for me somehow, what's popping up for me. I was up all night last night because it's Mahashivratri, so I've had 4 hours sleep, but this video really just, I don't know, it was very evocative. I always think of light as energy, matter, and intelligence. That's the paradigm I have. So it's in the world of an emanation, a manifestation, kind of like where the video went towards the end. In the beginning was the words and sound there, and I think of the flame, the true creation. I guess I can't use the word absolute because Michael always taught us that you can never talk about the absolute because it's beyond, beyond, beyond. But I always think of that as energy, vibration, and consciousness. So light in my mind is always like matter. But anyway, it was very evocative on levels that I can't even articulate. But a beautiful video. But that's what hit me. So even the sun with its emanation of sound and light is a part of what I call, in main layman's terms, the movie manifestation. So everything getting finer and finer and finer and finer until you hit what I don't know the absolute is beyond that. I guess it's beyond plasma even. I'm not sure what I'm saying even, but I'm hoping. And then when at the end, my thought was that, when we emanate sound and light, we are conscious manifestations. We individuals, we have the sun within us. So we are well, we're potential suns, but we can emanate and radiate light from the flame that we are too. So that's all that popped up for me, all sort of rambling.
That's excellent, Asher, and it was very poetic as well as occultly correct. If we can achieve anything together, it's the ability to stimulate ourselves in new and dynamic ways. And if you can't find words for that new experience, that may not be a liability, but an asset and sort of proof that the ageless wisdom does in fact invoke a sense of synthesis in higher realms. And we can actually thank not only the ageless wisdom, but this group right here who have just viewed simultaneously the same video. So what you have shared, Asher, is probably very dominant on many people's minds and, more importantly, their experiences. It's very hard to articulate, and I think you've done very well. Thank you. Any additional comments?
Oh yeah, we got lots and lots and lots of hands. Okay, please go ahead, Rose.
Thank you. I got two things I want to say. One, I found it very interesting, the part of the video where he says that lightning, from my impression, happens like could happen somewhere else on the planet, but that sound goes up to the stratosphere and comes back as like a forms like a torus and then comes back and then has this crackling or whistling effect on the auroras that you then hear, so that that part of that sound is actually coming from lightning far, far away. That's what I interpreted as what he said. Which really, if that's true, brings to mind, what about like all the sounds that we generate as a society in our cities, in our cars, in our all this cacophony of sounds that often when we go into the city, sometimes our senses are overwhelmed and we feel like, you know, we need to go into nature to rebalance and to rest. So I'm wondering is these sounds that we are making that perhaps could be disharmonious into the um natural sounds, or I mean it would be really interesting if you like had a like a spectrum of what a sound of a car looks like, not just like its wave particle, but how it affects, let's say, geometry. What does it look like geometrically? What does it look like in, you know, is it harmonious, like we was talking about the bio sounds with like the frog and the aurora, and that there's these similarities. So in nature, there's probably not many sounds that sound like a combustion engine, if we're going to use that as an example. So I'm just wondering the effect of man-made sounds have had on the entire planet, and then of course upon ourselves and upon our own individual health. And then I think when we go, because I know for me, when I go into nature, I am like a different, I could just feel so much rejuvenation and balancing. And I'm wondering if people who are maybe a little more sensitive, um, like that becomes like almost a requirement because of this very effect that we are unaware of that's happening. That's all. Thank you.
Well, that's an excellent comment, Rose. And in the reappearance of the Christ, TK and the Ageless Wisdom affirm the importance of contacting the angelic and Davic evolutions, because they are going to assist the Christ and the new group of world servers and disciples and initiates of various degrees to pour in all this healing light and sound and vibration that will slowly restore the sound and light eco balance in and around the planet. And yes, all of the discordant sounds that take place don't just disappear because you can't hear them. They go into the ethers and they have an effect on the ethers. And the ethers, we know the etheric body is connected around the entire person, entire groups, all of humanity, and subsequently the entire planet. I recall AAB saying that during the war, the worst destruction was done by the sound that came from these big explosions and guns. Not simply that bullets were whizzing around and shooting and injuring people, but just the sheer volume of disruptive sound was disturbing the ethers, and these more subtle evolutions, the higher elemental kingdoms, the David kingdoms that Rose is referring to, that are needed for planetary healing. So if anyone else would like to comment on that, feel free to do it.
Okay, we have tons and tons and tons of hands up. So next is Heidi. Please go ahead, Heidi.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just going to follow, because this is a couple of things that come to me, is that since we're really at the end of a particular age and moving into a new age, the disruption that is on one level is opening up possibilities on another level. And it's the harmonization of these, it's the harmonization that has to come in through, I want to say, the individual in relationship to group work, that actually allows these very large devic energies to help guide us in working with the elements, actually, and some of the forms that are in transformation at this time. And what this shows me when I look at it is the wave of, as we understand and work, there's an alignment that actually occurs on a multitude of levels energetically. And as this happens, it actually then projects itself energetically into the larger field. And then more atoms and molecules will follow it towards the next evolutionary turn that is occurring right now. But we have to be, but it's my understanding that the clarity has to be there, and that these, these thunderbolts are really where these energy waves are hitting up against particles. And then how do they shift and change? And they are communicating on a multitude of levels. And the more that we, part of the whole thing of meditating and concentrating is to be able to hold focus as this is happening. And that beginning emanation, to me, is the is really the archetype of energy that is helping us know what our part is, what we're to do, what is ours to do, and how we formulate it through words. I'm formulating in a particular way, but somebody else is going to formulate it differently, because it's the understanding of how it's formulating as it comes through our systems. And so everybody has this opportunity, which I find to be quite amazing. And when we come into a group like this, it actually opens the field in a way that allows more people, more points of light to participate. So I don't have anything more to say, and I thank you for giving me the space to say it.
Beautifully shared. I would point out before our next comment that the elements that we are exposed to here on the earth are simply reflections of higher elements that exist in the Davic and elemental kingdoms. And if anyone is really serious about working with the Devar and angelic kingdoms, I've recently published a book that can be found at my website called Deva Commentary, and it goes through a lot of what HPB, Rudolf Steiner, and particularly Alice Bailey has said on the importance of merging with the Deva evolution. And she simply says, to really summarize it, there are three groups of angelic and Devic lives. The first group are not even as advanced as we are, and we have to learn to guide them, to lift them from wherever they are onto the next level. The second group of Devas, they work on soul levels like we do, so we cooperate with them because they parallel what we're trying to do to bring these two evolutions, the human and Deva, together. And the last group of angelic and Devic kingdoms are so far ahead of us and so advanced, we have to be obedient to what they're trying to teach us. So Heidi, that was a wonderful summary of the work to be done. And yes, we all do it differently, but there are certain principles and laws that we have to adhere to and follow to speed this up. And I think that was a wonderful comment. Thank you. Anyone else?
Oh yeah, lots. Let me get through a couple more hands first, and then I'll go to the chats. Okay, Jessica, please go ahead.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
It's lovely to be here with you all. Just start by saying that. And thank you to everyone who has spoken today. And for the light that has produced the sound of our voices harmonizing together these ideas, because it is synthesizing and creating momentum. What I'm going to say is really a synthesis, an offshoot or offspring of everything that has been spoken already. As Heidi so eloquently stated, that when the light pours in through the crown and thoughts are produced and we speak, it inspires others to synthesize the information in their own unique way, depending on their rays and their particular soul evolution. So that particular verbiage really assisted me in formulating what to say and how to say it, because as I sit here, I think to myself, the struggle of being an initiate and sitting in meditation is such that when we are in the realization of higher realms of existence, being in the light, there's no body, it's just like an amorphous state of existence. And to come out of that into the body and into the world, there's a struggle to produce sound. I personally struggle with what to say, when to say it, and how to say it. It's something that I still struggle with, even now, in this moment, of course. And because the nature of light is illuminating unto itself, and yet we're in a vehicle or a form where we are designed in such a way to produce sound and to share the light with the world and to expand consciousness. Anyway, so some offshoots from that came forth, which was, what sound does thought make? And the one point that Heidi made, which is that the evolutionary point that we're in right now, which is calling us into silence and stillness within, to synthesize this information in a way that we can comprehend it and share it in a way that's cohesive, but also necessary. So yeah, I guess that's it. I hope that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And what you're saying is very clear.
Thank
One
you.
doesn't have to have a dictionary of vocabulary or terms to be able to express the momentum, the speed at which light can descend down through your system, starting at the crown and working down through the chakra system. And I would say that, as an addition to your comment, that the Spirit and the living Christ will put the words in your mouth
Mm.
when it comes right from the heart. And it's not how polished the words are, it's how genuine, how full of light. And your sharing was very important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and next up is Barbara. You want to go ahead, Barbara?
Yes, so I'd like to compare something of recent science to recent metaphysics. So just this week, a headline: physicists are reimagining dark matter. There might be new particles, forces, and perhaps even a dark Big Bang, which would be a second Big Bang. So, so this is a reminder from a scientific point of view that most of the universe is missing. The atoms and lights you see, from people to planets, stars, and galaxies, make up just 5% of the universe. So the rest is a two-part mystery, a substance called dark energy, which pushes space apart, comprises 68% of the cosmos. What's left is dark matter. Dark matter emits no light, and scientists only know it exists when they look at the night sky. They see galaxies rotating faster than they should. So as physicists are trying to penetrate dark matter for a new understanding of light, there are other scientists and metaphysicians that are seeking an origin that's not a Big Bang, but is elegant qualities that have so much intelligence and love that they expand. So these are qualities that are perhaps even before light and sound, that permeate light and sound. So looking for the origin, many possible ways of looking, but the video you provided of the triangles seem to have some richness to offer. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Barbara. Yes, science and metaphysics. And in earlier Zoom meetings, we went over and articulated on the electrical idea of the universe, and that plasma, which is electrical and magnetic in nature and really comprises almost everything in the universe, it is the crossover point into the fourth subplane of etheric matter that the esotericist and the occultist works with. The other three simply being aspects of dense matter, which are not considered principles. So science is making inroads into the idea that everything is electrical and magnetic and everything is the result of light. And in this case, with what Barbara has shared, gone even further in the potential recognition that the one primal state of existence is darkness, but not as darkness as humanity understands it, like death, the inorganic, blank. No, it's that form of energy that precedes light. And it's what it's called in esotericism, Fohat. And Fohat breathes forth from pure darkness and all the worlds appear. So these are very important insights that you have shared, Barbara. So thank you very much.
Okay, we have one more hand and then we have several comments. So please go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, hello. I had several comments from everybody's discussions, and I can't remember everyone, but I'll just say what I do remember. Recently, we mentioned dark matter and dark energy. There are some scientists who speculate or postulate that that's the influence from other alternate universes or alternate dimensions. Like there's probably billions of other galaxies that are in different phases and influenced from the gravitational influences from those bodies of matter are affecting the galaxies in our universe. That's one idea to keep in mind. As regard to dark energy, I had never heard about the Fohat being out there. So that's something to think about. I'll also like Jessica, she said she has difficulty speaking her mind and saying what she wants to say or not knowing what to say. I'm in the same boat as me. Regarding the sounds, the destruction of sounds when it's from war, I totally agree with you on that, Duane. I feel like that is probably the most devastating of all versus just the explosions and the damage it causes, but the physical energy it emits from the explosion itself is so jarring. Like I have a neighbor who shot his powerful gun a few months ago. He did it without me knowing, and it's like boom! It startled the shit. It just startled me so much, and the effect I felt afterwards was just so disharmonious, and it lasted for half the day. And I was thinking all the other elementals that are in the area must have been shocked out of their core, and I bet that's not healthy to do that. So I hope that we can heal from that in the future.
Excellent.
One last one. The perception of sound and light. I think one of the things we're stumbling over is finding terms to articulate in words. So how can you hear sound in space? How can you hear light? We have faculties in our bodies that can, the eardrum vibrates to percussions of movements. But that's because we define sound from that. So sound in a different way, but still the same function. It has a frequency modulation, frequency change. So light, when you see reds and greens and yellows, those are changes in frequency. So it's the same idea, just that it's on a different scale. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Eric. That was excellent. It's interesting, if anyone has researched or been exposed to the concept of synesthesia, where the normal senses overrun their boundaries and they begin to overlap with other senses. People who can eat food and can feel a certain geometry eating the food, a certain color, the food has a certain sound. People can touch things and they can get a download from other of their senses. And it sort of indicates how the senses are becoming synthesized and will one day just be one organ of perception, which will be the soul. The idea of sound being disruptive is really, really so important in this new technological age we're moving into, because what it can do is it can take a place of rare beauty, and when the big machines move in, it can drive out all the higher devas who refuse to inhabit that particular area. They go to another place. It's not for nothing that when you go into cities that are all concrete and cement and have hardly any greenery, you feel like you're going through a type of withdrawal, because all the Devic and higher elementals have been driven out of that area, and guess what has come in to take its place? The lower grades of devas and elementals that must be dealt with, but they can really put you into a spin if you're an empath or you're highly sensitive. And Eric, you clearly are in that category, demonstrating a super sensory to sound. And this is actually a tremendous asset if you look at it from the other side of the spiritual spectrum. You can see how it can take and put you in an uncomfortable position, but that same sensitivity, when directed through the imagination towards your future, what you can become, what you're being transformed into, it is a great asset. So it's like the double-edged sword. You can have these senses that are super sensitive to all kinds of negative impacts, but on the other hand, when you can put them to your advantage, you can progress exponentially in whatever path you have taken in life. Okay, any additional comments before we move on?
We've got about 15 chats here that have been stacking up. So
okay, let it go.
Dana says you can see these sounds with semantics. CYMONTICS.
Semantic scope, cymoscope. Yes, it's a machine that takes sound and translates it into vibrations that can be viewed on a screen. It can be a screen of sand particles, it can be oil, it can be water, but when you connect the cymoscope, you can see what sound potentially looks like. I say potentially because you're actually looking at the effect of sound. You're not looking at sound itself because you can't really see sound, but you can familiarize yourself and become sensitive to how it affects everything in your environment. In other words, everything is malleable to sound. Your thoughts have sounds. Your emotions have sounds. Your desires have sounds, color, geometry, and we're going to explore that later in other presentations. But that was excellent.
And then Diana says, separatist and egotistic thoughts are a noise, and surely their geometry is not harmonious as their creative pattern or creator pattern is not.
Yes. Each one of us is graded, not by each other, not by any teacher in this world, but by the master. And the master can see us in a way that no one else can. They can see all of our vehicles, the color, the tone, the vibration, and they can ascertain where our limitations are and where our assets with a mere glance.
Magda says, this reminds me of the Schrodinger experiment. A particle behaves as a wave or a photon particle, depending if it's observed or if it's not. Can we think about this observer as a third eye gifted observer, creating and destructing depending upon the sound of his light?
Yes, and that would include any of a number of different centers in your different bodies, but it's primarily in the ajna and the throat center, where vibrations coming from high levels can be translated down into language, or language, lesser language, can be lifted up and transmutated, and one can have a vision of what that language is alluding to. And we always have to keep in mind that language can only allude to the truth. It cannot take you to the truth. However, there are certain sacred vowels that you can enunciate, and like the Om that we enunciate, and we're going to go into this a little further in this presentation, how enunciating the Om is only a prelude to taking that sound, bringing it up onto the high mental plane, and then sounding the Om silently. It has 10 times, if not more, potency with whatever magic you're attempting to do or whatever alignment you're attempting to also make. Okay.
And then Michael Stacy uploaded a copy of his graphic that is showing the absolute being of all states of reality. And he says it's still under development, but it's a great graphic. And any of you who want to can download it and check it out later.
Please do. I've seen it, and it is a demonstration of many, many years of study in the occult and metaphysical traditions. But most importantly, it is constructed by somebody who's far enough along the path to really put heart energy and intuition into it. So I highly recommend you study it.
And then Anna says, sound is consciousness, a propelling impulse, and the attractive medium. Sound is dynamic energy of vibrational relation between and is the creating intermediary, the linking third factor in the process of manifestation between substance and life. Therefore, on the higher planes, the sound manifests via spiritual hierarchies the living ideas of divine purpose. Once attuned to this dynamic element of sound, we can work within the imagination to apply the dynamic principle to spiritual expression.
Beautiful, and so beautifully shared.
Michael Crow put a link in there for your diva books. Thank you,
Thank you.
Michael. I was trying to walk and chew bubble gum at the same time and hadn't gotten there yet. Lenny says lightning is the symbol for the first ray in electric fire. It signifies Uranus, and in particular, the way the connection with the galactic center and the coming of the cosmic fire on Earth.
Excellent. And there's one sort of a footnote that I should add to the Deva evolution. Most people think they work only along the healing line of the second and fourth and sixth rays, but actually the Deva evolution works along all of the 7 rays. And there are Devas that have gone way beyond the human kingdom and even have gone beyond masters in the hierarchy, and they deal with what is called the closing down of different forms when their use is no longer needed. These are the destroying devas that when there's obstructions on a personality level to your growth and development on a group level where there's impediments or impasses or cul-de-sacs, or on a planetary level, when they are called in by advanced initiates and masters, what they do is they destroy the old forms that are hindering, that are preventing the light from coming through. So when you think of the devas, they work with lightning, just as Lenny has pointed out, and we're moving into a Uranian period where Shambhala, symbolizing the first aspect of deity, can now begin to work directly with humanity, or those initiates and disciples who understand how to work with that energy. Thank you, Lenny. That was an important contribution.
Okay, I see your hand, Eric, but please let me get through more of these chats first, okay? Stefan says, years ago, I lived in Denmark, Western Australia. The whole region has lots of wetlands, providing the biosphere for a multitude of frogs. It was fascinating to meditate upon the natural symphony of 10 different frog species, and each species coming with their own signature sounds. The motorbike frog, piper frog, crickety frog, flapping frog, frolicking frog, humming frog, etc. Equally, there was a slow build-up from sunset to a climax of all frog species in the middle of the night to a relaxation at dawn, considering that it is widely accepted that a frog song is courtship. Equally, I would invite your consideration to the possibility that all planets in our solar system have an aurora borealis and vibrate on different sound waves and create live waves to communicate with each other, possibly to create a cosmic harmony to support us in our evolution. Duane, I just want to say yes to the borealis and yes to the different sound waves for the different planets. I did a presentation a couple of years ago on the different planets with their auroras, and NASA, one of the, I think it was the Voyager, went through and got all the planetary sounds. You can find them on the NASA website. So yeah, that's proven science in there. Okay, sorry, Duane. Did you want to say anything else to
That was
Stefan?
perfect, BL. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, NASA has demonstrated that through their research that it's not just the Earth that's heating up and going through these major ecological shifts and changes. It's every planet in our solar system, because the sun, our great sun, which is the prototype of all the planets, esoteric planets, and the Earth, is undergoing initiation. So starting from the top down, you have this expansion with light, color, sound, vibration, and it has a physical effect on the ecology of all these planets. They're heating up. So when we talk about playing our part to bring balance onto our planet, we have to also understand that true spiritual balance is not going to fully arrive until we go through certain major changes. And humanity's part is to be able to stop polluting the planet, and because that's contributing, it's not the only factor, but all the toxins that humanity pours into the planet is causing it to become imbalanced, not only physically that you can see through weather conditions, but etherically on the astral plane, the mental, with all these higher groups of inner beings. Okay, one more. Go ahead.
All right, one more. Well, we have a hand up, and my little whatchamapuppy tells me there's 16 new messages. Do you, well, Eric, let Eric talk, and do you want to look
Yes,
through the bottom of the messages and see if there's anything you want to address before we move on?
I would love to, but I can't.
Oh, okay. All right. Um,
But thank you for whoever has posted those. And Rose takes snapshots of everything, all the people who participate, and all the comments. And I have a chance to review any we miss.
yeah, Zoom will also do that, and we usually post that. So, okay, let's go. Let's forget the rest of the chats. I'm sorry, people. I'm just
Let
sorry.
Eric finish with his.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Yeah, thank
Eric.
you. I wanted to bring up a comment about the pyramids. I saw some comments in the chat about pyramid. The triangles, in their way they're built, of course, a pyramid is a triangle with 4 sides in a 3-dimensional space. But I was listening to this channeled discussion with these beings called Ra, and they claim to be Venetian from Venus originally, and they were claiming to be responsible for the pyramids, Great Pyramids in Giza. And they're told, the people that are interviewing them, that the way the pyramids are right now, they're not safe to be in those, like the king's chamber, because the way the energy is focused there, because there's certain crystals that used to be there, they're no longer there, that modulated it so it would be safe. Now it's not safe to be there for extended periods of time. And they described how it works. It says the shape of the pyramid acts like a funnel that brings in this light energy that's not visible light. It's an etheric light, and it doesn't matter which direction the pyramid was facing. If it was upside down, it'd still work. But the being that was sitting in there would have to be reversed in polarity, otherwise they wouldn't get the effect. So they described it as like a pyramid with had like 3 nodes inside the pyramid. The energy converged at 3 different points, if I remember correctly, maybe 2 points. I'm pretty sure it's 3. And the king's chamber was at one of those points, and the queen's chamber was at another point. And it says it's safe to be in the queen's chamber for about 30 minutes. After that, it starts being harmful. So I thought that's interesting. So the questioners then asked them, what is a safe construction for a pyramid? If I was going to build a pyramid, what would be safe? They said anything less than 70 degrees or 76 degrees, it has to be less than that in degrees at the apex. Otherwise, it would not be safer. So I was thinking about the Luxor pyramid in Las Vegas. It's built based on the Great Pyramid. And when I looked the news on that, it has a lot of negative things happening. They call it a cursed casino. A lot of people die, people fighting each other, a lot of crazy stuff like that. So it's built with a 76-degree apex. It's also built out of steel. And they said you don't want to use common metals. It has to be rarefied metals like gold or something if you build it. So if you build a pyramid, it has to be made out of plastic or wood or stone. So that's my comment.
Excellent. Thank you. It's hard to know without more background some of what you have outlined, but it's clear to me that a pyramid clearly has 3 or 4 different sides, different types of pyramids, and that when you have 3 points, you have energy circulating between those 3 nodes. And that is, in fact, what creates the funnel effect for the etheric light, prana, chi, to pour down and to be used in initiation and in healing, which a lot of these ancient places contributed to. As a general rule, and I've done a little bit of research on this, any type of a pyramid that's 45 degrees or less is usually considered feminine. It draws from the earth. It draws from the natural environment. Anything over 45 degrees then switches into more of a masculine polarity. And you can see how this might relate to like the tip of the spear or an arrowhead or something very aggressive. It's sharper. And now that's not to say it's destructive always in a bad way, because it depends on the intent of the magician or the group of magicians that are attempting to do something. But how something is constructed is very important when you get into divine geometry. And I'm not surprised of all these horror shows that people see consistently happening in casinos, because, and this is just my opinion, and I apologize if it's a value judgment, there's a lot of negative energies that are attracted to places like that. It's not to say the Christ might reappear and go directly to a casino and clean house and tip some tables over. I don't know. But HPB, just before she passed and was working privately with her students, she constructed different meditation rooms, and she was attempting to face them with all the different metals that are associated with the planets. Venus would be copper. Let's see, the sun would be probably gold, and the planets relating to the fourth ray, silver, like Mercury and maybe even the moon and what it veils. And part of her ritual was to take a student or a group of students into these chambers and then to give them these special meditations. So you're really onto some very important stuff there, Eric. Okay, so now we're going to continue with the presentation as I outlined it, but we will stop a little further along and have the same opportunity for questions and answers. And you can see, because you've been looking at this for quite a while here, the idea and the importance of how a particle, which is considered material, can become a wave, which is now no longer material. And this is just a generalization, because under other circumstances, both of these can be considered material and both of them can be considered immaterial. So going to our next slide, I happen to come across some new work that's being done in the science of photonic hophions. Boy, quite a name. Where we see light shaped as smoke rings that behave like a particle. And one of the statements by the scientists working on this is that our results illustrate the immense beauty of light structures. You know, we think of light as just a beam, but it can also have other manifestations that make it into a structure, granted a very ethereal structure. Okay, hophions are a new discovery in physics, and many of their properties are yet to be uncovered. Hophions could be particularly useful in upgrading technologies like neuromorphic computing and qubits. Because of their three-dimensional nature, this will enable movement in 3 dimensions instead of 2. So this isn't just something that science has discovered, it's something that they have created by manipulating light. That is incredibly important. Light waves and light particles found in atomic and subatomic levels in physics can now be modified and manipulated into these hophions. These hophions can be manipulated into counter-rotating particles, as well as the torus light design seen in this image to the left. One of the keynotes of all of my presentations is how does the disciple, the group, the planetary life get from where it is, the so-called quote unquote material world, to the spiritual. Again, oversimplifying, through the science of triangles, you build vortices that lead to spherical lives that are way beyond our level of understanding. And looking at this, you can see on the right, it's more more like waves in this torus configuration. And then as you move more to the left, it begins to become counter-rotating into more like particles. So I thought that was a marvelous sort of summary of what we're talking about here in the Buddy James video we just recently viewed. Okay, keeping in mind that the Hopfions that are being discovered in physics and many of their properties are yet to be uncovered. We read that. I apologize for the repeat, and we're going to go to the next. This is the crossover point right here. If you look at the numbers 5, 6, and 7 towards the left, this is the material plane. This is where humanity basically lives and constitutes his physical body and all material manifestation. Where you see the word plasma is where matter becomes so refined, it becomes electrical and magnetic, and it penetrates into the first higher etheric plane of the human constitution seen on the left. This is actually two charts combined. On the right, you can see where it says 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the 4 higher cosmic planes. When you cross over into the state of the etheric through your understanding, you are nothing more than plasma, electrical and magnetic influences, and how to increase their vibratory radiation. Your auric field will go from purple at the 4th initiation, light violet at the 3rd, the monadic violet, and then the logoic lavender. So all of the masters in great breadth and depth have these 4 colors built into their auric field, whereas we're building them in their subplanes, in their sub-levels. So I apologize for making this perhaps a bit over technical, but I wanted to sort of squeak that in, that this is what emerges in the study of light and sound, these different etheric levels, because they have their light signatures and they have their sound signatures. This is a good visual examination. For the longest time, let me step back here for a minute. Science thought that sound traveled in straight lines. Well, traveled in waves, parallel waves, but at a more or less a straight direction. And that if you were in a group of people and if you heard somebody's voice who was at the beginning of the pack of people in line walking, that it was just a vibration bouncing off trees, and that's how you heard it. But science has proven conclusively that sound is spherical. And so if you're at the head of the line and you're talking, yes, the majority of that sound will go forward, but it creates a bubble that will go out in all directions. Okay, now we're going to move into another video. And this one is equally as powerful as the other one, and in certain ways goes right into etheric, the patterns that light and sound and color and geometry make on the etheric plane. So if any of these images appeal to you intuitively and you can't quite find the right words to express it, it's all right. You're getting it on the level it's intended. This artist populates spheres with triangles, and you can see that a triangle not only communicates with all parts of itself, they're different energy links or nodes, as Eric pointed out, they are also very organic and interactive and can communicate with all other triangles that can be found on a similar or parallel ray 9. When these numerous triangles are linked together, once again, and I apologize for being redundant here, they become a sphere. When these spheres and their numerous triangles are set in motion or rotated, it's like a musical composition that comes alive. Okay, I want everyone to take a deep breath, relax, sort of forget just what I said, and just let the animation impress itself upon you in its organic and true nature. Excellent. Before we open it up to comments, I just like to share that the previous work we've done in earlier presentations, where we shared the idea of the star of life, that when certain triangles come together, they create the magical tetrahedron, and that the tetrahedron is a powerful symbol of the higher meeting the lower. And that we are all geometric forms of color, sound, vibration in motion. We're simultaneously building in the new and at the same time shedding the old. Okay, excellent. Anyone like to share or comment?
We have tons and tons of comments, but let me see if I can start with just this most recent video, which, of course, as you know, is near and dear to my heart. Okay, lots of wows. Lenny says the central point of each flower interrelates with all of them, the one in etheric action in the descent to earth.
Awesome. This is also why the flower of life is such a potent symbol, because it shows the Vesica Pisces, where one life or one circle overlaps geometrically with another, and then another, so that you're looking at many different autonomous forms of life, but they all seamlessly merge and come together to create something even larger and more brilliant. Thank you, Lenny.
Let me see something here. Okay. Mary says the Om Mani Padme Hum, the homage to the jewel at the heart of the lotus.
Yes, and we can thank BL for sharing that with me quite some time ago, and it's now become my favorite. Thank you, BL.
You know, I've shared this with you and I've shared it with Tuya because I got it from Tuya. I have
Julia.
always, exactly, and thank you, the guys that recorded it. I have always resonated to the Om Mani Padme Hum, and I had the music in my head. I knew what I thought it should be. And it wasn't until I heard this actual recording of it that that was the music that was in my head. Not the first part of it, but the middle part where the one voice gets very, I mean, I'd sing it for you, but you guys would all just laugh because I can't carry a tune. But that resonated with the music I've heard in my head all along for that particular mantra. And it gets me every time I hear it. Okay, sorry,
Beautiful.
enough about me.
Awesome.
Eric asks, what constitutes the structure of the triangles?
Well, they're constructed out of different types of substance depending on what level they're operating on. If you refer back to the opening image where I show all the triangles between the first and fifth initiation that must be mastered and linked to their higher counterpart, you'd see that each triangle is made up of different elemental and Davic substance. The most important thing that you can do in your progress forward is to know where you're situated on the spiritual path. And that is no easy task. And it's not this morbid preoccupation with, oh, how advanced or how far I'm going to go. It's impersonally, where am I now? And what's the next step? Are there meditations, alignments, visualizations out there that if I used, I could speed up my development tenfold? Good question, Eric. Thank you.
Okay, I see hands, but let me just get through a couple of more of these chats first since we didn't get to them last time.
Yes.
Okay. Elaine, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. Let me see what it's. Oh, I've got my, okay. He says, I felt like tingling on the sides of my head. I'm going to listen to this again tonight. And of course, I am putting not only the recording of the whole webinar, but the individual recordings that Duane is giving us, so you can listen to that specifically and watch it.
Excellent. That's wonderful. Thank you, Tingley.
And Stefan says, considering the intelligence of the Blue Books, might it be possible that we as global humanity are called upon to create a new song for our planet to signal the next stage of consciousness and communicating with the cosmos? Once we have a one soul consciousness of our deepest, truest desire, might be to create the Earth new song. Well, I vote for that one, but that's just me.
Beautiful.
There's
It is
also
song.
it is. What are those songs? The symphonies that get together and uh, multiple people from around the world and they create songs. Um, you know, they did it with We Are the World. They did it with a couple of other
Yes.
rock songs, but then they also did it. There was some symphony master who invited everybody to send him in their thing, and he put it all together in a huge collage, and it was absolutely beautiful.
Yes. If you can find that sometime in the future, BL, you would be nice to share it because I have seen it. It's wonderful.
Okay, let me see. Asha says, thank you, Duane. You rock and help us grok. Said, I thought of tetrahedrons, the matrix, the Indrasnet, all oneness.
Awesome. I'll take it. Rock on. The group rocks
Maria
on.
said, Maria says, God is beauty and this is beauty.
Thank you. That's very beautiful. Keep in
Um,
mind, Heidi and Maria, that the Tibetans said that at the turn of the century, there was going to be a new presentation of the ageless wisdom. And if we, as a group, as individual contributors, can do that in some small way, it can light that fire. It can bring in a new tune, a new song, a new vibration. And all of you are contributing to that right now, not just by being here, but by your livingness of these teachings.
Joe says, if you seat yourself in the center of the sphere, you become the symbol organically, vibrationally, light and sound.
Beautiful. We are on the outside of a sphere like an onion that we've only penetrated the few of the outer rings, and there's an infinite amount left to discover and explore. The sheer beauty of it is overwhelming.
Okay, I'm going to do two more chats and then I'm going to the hands up, okay?
Okay.
Diana says, experience. The moving tetrahedron shows how its periphery is diluted in a larger reality where all possibilities are brewing. It is a germinal ocean.
Beautiful. We're often taught that we go from A to B to C in our lives to contribute or to grow or to learn. But when you study the ageless wisdom teachings and the intuition begins to awaken, you realize everything is emerging from this hidden point we call pralaya, or the abstract, or the unknown, the unborn, as the Buddhists would say. And it explodes into manifestation. It doesn't come along 1, 2, 3, 4. It comes along organically, like the petals of a flower emerging simultaneously from that bud. Thank you, Diana.
Stefan says we are scanning and striving towards the critical mass of creating a sacred song, a cosmic love song.
Yes, That's beautifully shared. A cosmic love song. The music of the spheres. Each planet has something to contribute to us, and when we know its note, we can tune into its contributing song, and all of them taken as a composite make up the great symphonic sound of our star.
Okay, over to hands up. Jessica, please go ahead.
Hi. I was just writing down my thoughts to make them a little more cohesive, and so they didn't just escape me. I wanted to share some points on what the visualization, or the visual imprinted upon me. So there was an immense feeling within that as I gave myself over to it. The music assisted, in really feeling the truth that what affects one of us affects all of us. And for me personally, there was a lot of micro realizations within that of what I'm doing that may be affecting the whole in a negative way. So I thought to share that with the group. And then there was a additional realization compounded on a previous thought, which is that we are but a cell inside of a larger cell network, and consciousness is the connection or awareness of such. And that could actually tie into the first thought as well, which is that our actions, when they're thought of solely or selfishly, and I don't mean self big S, like I am the self, I mean the small s self, the ego identity, when we're making or creating or taking action without conscientious awareness or consciousness, or full consciousness or expanded consciousness, or the awareness of how what we're doing is going to impact the whole. And then, so there's that. And then there was an additional realization that the power of now, so there's a message that has come forth for me, and I would imagine for others, coming from the angels and guides, which is that the past does not have any power over this moment, this now moment. And the visualization really showed that, because as I gave myself over to it, it showed me things that I could have only received in this now moment. And it's interesting to think about how the small s self, egoic identification, being the small cell, not realizing that we're a part of the whole, greater whole, would keep us unmotivated, keep us stifled, and keep us circling and cycling into thoughts and actions of unconsciousness. So to summarize, I found a great sense of expansion and motivation from that. So I just wanted to say thank you very much, Duane.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing so eloquently this idea of a visual imprint, that the things that we observe are changing the substance in our bodies, either positively or negatively. There's no neutral here. And this idea of surrender is so important, because what the Tibetan outlines to me summarizes this concept so beautifully. He says, we don't submit to other people in the group. We don't submit even to teachers who we think may be more advanced than we are, and we often find later they weren't. We submit to the spirit within. We let go. We temporarily let go, keeping aware that we're here participating, but feeling that charge, that being overwhelmed by that which is greater, as you have shared, Jessica, something greater than the small ego. Because the ego has its place and it will become a great tool more and more as we become deeper into the soul. But it will no longer rule us and it will no longer be tripping us every time we seem to turn around. So thank you for that. That was beautiful.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, and then Heidi, please go ahead.
Well, I feel really grateful to be in this group, and I feel really grateful to follow Jessica's in her communication to the group and her revelation that was occurring. And I just want to acknowledge that the vibrations that were flowing from that emerging video that you gave, and its continuous revolution of itself actually was vibrating all the way down to my feet and under my feet, actually. And I actually do feel that vibrational alignment energetically that has come through the group and the visuals that you shared with us and the sound. So all of it was coming forward, and it made me really go back to the understanding of that empty space, the black, however Barbara was talking about that empty space, and then the possibilities that are present in that emptiness. And as we learn how to focus and come into the aligning qualities and principles that underlie all of nature, because nature actually comes from the universal and it'll return to the universal. But being able to align with those principles moment to moment becomes luminous, actually. It becomes a luminous presence. And anyway, I feel a lot of love right now, and I feel a tremendous amount of gratitude that is present. And that presence of gratitude is actually coming from the Divic kingdom that has been wanting to work with us in a way that it's needing to find that way. So it's like I just want to bow down in gratitude.
Thank you. That's so sweet and so beautifully shared from the heart. And if one is not moved to tears periodically, you may not be getting it. And what happens when a person is moved to tears? Their normal emotional polarization with the devas and elementals they work with, and they can be very good devas and elementals. But when you are impacted through color and sound, the group dynamic, the animations, powerfully, what happens is that your beautiful emotional body is now being overshadowed by something bigger, bolder, brighter that wants to come through you into the group, because others are also experiencing this. And this is one of the main motivations of this presentation. If everybody in this group suddenly broke down and cried, I'd turn my computer off and go back to the garden, because I would have known everybody got it. Yes, I use way too many words, too many concepts, but when the time is right, I can shut it down. And if I can share how that is to be done with others, knowing that they have their own unique path, then I will have achieved in some small way the purpose of this group. Okay, one more share.
Okay. Dasha, please go ahead.
Again, Duane, thank you so much. This has been very uplifting. And when Jessica mentioned about the ego and the small self and negative emotions, I have been struggling myself with some very difficult challenges with my mobility and struggling to keep a positive vibration. I know the truth intellectually, but sometimes you end up going down rabbit holes. And you're right, when sometimes you see something, it creates things. So I've come across some stuff that's been happening in the collective that I guess I don't want to use this word, it's an overused word, but it kind of has like PTSD symptoms. And I know to dissociate from it, but I just wanted to tap words of wisdom. I cry several times every day because of the pain and stuff, and I intellectually know, that's my soul, at a soul level what's going on, and I want to be totally soul infused and soul embodied, but the little self. So basically, I'm asking, you have a way of saying things that I just rocket fast with you, so I'm tapping you for words of wisdom. How to keep your vibration high when you're going through such challenges, and maybe you come across information in the collective that is, painful to observe. And, I love being in nature. That immediately fits me, like Rose said earlier. I just, instant consultation. Anything you can say that would help somebody when I go through my struggle, please?
You need a meditative program. I'm getting feedback for some reason.
Okay, I just had to mute her, so you won't get the feedback. Go ahead, Duane.
Okay, thank you. Well, you need to expand your inquiry into the spiritual life through meditation, visualization, prayer, and exposing yourself to beautiful music, beautiful art, beautiful people, because none of us are complete. And when we come together, we add to each other's Antakarana Bridge, because there is a group Rainbow Bridge, and it's in the process of forming, and it's very beautiful. Okay, thank you very much. Now we're going to end with a short meditation. I'm going to skip through a few slides. You'll see that I always over-prepare, but I guess over-prepare is better than my past unprepared. Oh, let me just stop this for a second. Okay. So in closing, I want to bring our attention to Sanat Kumara, who is the outer expression of our planetary logos. And this is a wonderful statement in poem that DK has shared with us. Could somebody please read it?
I'll read it.
Thank you.
The final phase of the divine purpose. Does it mean anything to you when I say the ceremonial ritual of the daily life of Sanat Kumara, implemented by music and sound and carried on the waves of color, which break upon the shores of the three worlds of human evolution, reveal in the clearest notes and tones and shades the deepest secret behind his purpose? It sincerely makes sense to you and is dismissed as a piece of symbolic writing used by me to convey the unconveyable. Yet I am not here writing in symbols, but am making an exact statement of fact.
So now we're going to move into the closing meditation, and I want everyone to bring to their attention any area in their life that they are seeking improvement, and feel and sense intuitively these waves of Sanat Kumara implemented and directed by love cascading over you, moving through you like an interior shower. All these beautiful colors and geometry and images you're about to see, and see any congestion, any problems with your physical health, any problems emotionally that you're working on, or you simply want to improve, and any old thought forms you want to break up and dissipate out of your auric field. Sense that as you're watching this video. And then after a few moments, see the planet being inundated by light. Many triangles of glowing Buddhic light of unconditional love that are healing all the problemed areas on the planet. And there are many of them. And see this light that's passing through you, through this group, contributing to that planetary healing by our interaction with these great and powerful devas who have no other motive than to help us at this time historically. So thank you, and take a deep breath. Excellent. Any final comments before we close?
I'm sorry, there's too many of them to say. I will post the chat messages so everybody can look at them, especially you, Duane, who didn't have a chance
Well,
while you were
thank you.
giving us our beautiful presentation.
Thank you so much. And thank all of you for coming and making this what it is, a group experience to go beyond the mind into the intuition, but at the same time to keep our lower minds in a healthy state of receptivity. So blessings to all.
Okay, our next Awakening the Higher Mind is going to be on the 13th of April. So we hope to see everybody then. Bye.
Bye-bye.